Hello, I'm Dr. Franklin Solers. I'd like to welcome you to Transformation and Transcendence Roundtable podcast. We're going to discuss things spiritual, psychological, mystical. We're going to combine psychotherapy and psychological concepts since have all been trained as therapists, but all walk a spiritual path. We're going to combine all these elements and help with inspiration and guidance and coaching and support for each of you's spiritual growth. That's the intention. So we'll rely on case material. We'll rely on ancient wisdom as well as psychological awareness, depth psychology, Jungian psychology, Bionian psychology, different kinds of depth psychology that can be of help to you. So thanks for joining us, and we hope you enjoy the journey, and we hope to be of service to you and help you in your growth. That's our mission. So thank you, and here we go. To Transformation and Transcendence, podcast roundtable. We have Ben Bennett Carpenter, a life coach, and Joshua Morrow, a therapist and life coach, Farid Lazaba, a life coach and therapist, and Leah Dickinson, both a life coach and therapist. And the life coaching for us is going to be taking on a rather spiritual dimension, right? That kind of thing. So we often we talk about cases, we talk about concepts, we talk about issues, and so maybe there's questions too. We also we're launching this platform, so there may be ideas just thrown about the launch itself. Also, I do have a book coming out, and so we may talk a bit about that too, which is a spiritually inclined book. So it has relevance to kind of the work we're doing. It's not just a book; it's a book that's integrated with the launch of the platform, you would say. So thanks, everybody, and how's everybody doing today?
Good.
So far, so good.
Okay.
No complaints.
Okay. Any issues to talk about that are up, or impasses in any of the treatments or any of the work? Any questions about the book or about the platform? Anything like that? We get the ball rolling, and then typically we got a lot to say.
Yeah, I have a question for you, Dr. Solers, and the rest of the members of the meeting. This is about two clients that I had recently. How do you guys think you would approach talking to clients about being more open in their expression of feelings in sessions, not being so over-controlled? I wonder if you guys have had experiences before where it's very clear that a client is trying to explore their thoughts about something and they're having strong feelings, but you can also tell they're really trying to control them. Let's take the example of sadness. Like, you can tell they're holding back tears. What are some ways that we can encourage them to express their feelings, to show them that the expression of feelings is useful for them, and will help them in the process? Because from what I've seen, some clients have the idea that to express feelings is a weakness, is a silly thing, to use an exact quote that I've heard once or twice from different clients, maybe not useful to them. So how would you suggest that we can make the therapy environment as warm and welcoming for their expression of feeling, and how can we encourage them to do so and show them that it'll benefit the process that unfolds with what we do with them?
Very good question. Would anyone else like to start?
Well, I'll jump right in. I think. Oh, go ahead, Leah. Yeah. All right, I'll jump right in. Because I my hunch was everybody's got something on this one. It's a good way to kick it off, Reed. I mean, a couple things that come to mind for me right away is probably things you're already thinking of and probably already doing. But I mean, one is just if the client isn't already aware that it's a safe place and like, hey, this is the place. Like, some are, but I think I sort of forget, and I have to remind myself, like, oh, wait a minute. Many of my clients aren't really aware that this is the place. Like, if there's any place to be able to safely express their emotions in a controlled environment, controlled, limited environment, that, I mean, this is the place to do it. And so I do think of that idea of along with it being safe, that there's an element of it being limited. Because in this group, we've talked about that before, of like this sense that like, uh-oh, if I open the floodgates, when does it end? Like, if I open the crack to my feelings at all, is that it? Like, I'm going to be absolutely wiped out, And so it makes me think of like, wow, we're in this room, or if it's virtual, it's like, well, we're in this session, you're in your room, I'm in my room or office or what have you. And there's this limited amount of time, whatever it is, it's a 45-minute session, hour session, whatever it is. And there's this time space that if there's an acceptance that, boy, can I accept that it's okay for 45 minutes or an hour within this space to just go ahead and crack that open, or just let down and let that come forward. So that's one thing. The other thing I just mentioned real fast is just that the idea that feelings provide information. And I know Dr. Sellers can talk a lot about this, but I mean, to me, that's like, when that first dawned on me years ago, I was like, what? I just had never, ever thought of that. And so if people are kind of in a mindset of like, feelings are useless, because you kind of mentioned that, Freed. It's like, yeah, it's silly. It's useless. It's like, no, that's actually not accurate. So for some clients, if it can dawn on them that, whoa, these feelings are data, it's like, oh, now suddenly they have value. So I've been going on for a while here, so I'll stop there. But,
well, I will just say briefly before Leah chimes in, I think you're right, Ben, that there is this kind of philosophical bias, we might call it, in Western culture, that there's the rational verbalizing part of us and there's the feeling part of us. And the idea that is probably implicit in all of us is that to be fully rational and deal with life in the best way, we must exercise our rational faculties as well as possible, with little to no influence or maybe even contamination from the feelings, or as previous thinkers would have called them, the passions. So you're right. I think part of it is just explaining to clients that actually feelings and participating in a vital way in the session, bringing your feelings in, gives you more data. It supplements the intellectual, verbal knowledge that I'm sure a lot of clients are already getting in therapy or life coaching. You want to supplement that with the feelings that orient you and organize the more intellectual kinds of knowledge. So, yeah, I think that's a good way to go about it for particular clients.
Yeah, to just kind of piggyback off of what both you have said, I have dealt with this also with some of my clients, and I get the feeling from them, and like the verbalization from one of them was, well, I just feel like it's a waste of my time because I only have so much time in session with you. So I want to be able to talk as much as I can and, get that information out. But I think, again, the piece that's missing is that people forget that crying is cathartic, that it releases oxytocin and endorphins, and it actually helps produce like that feel good response. So in many regards, it's a very healing process. Also, with the idea of information that's provided, it can also provide us with an understanding of specific areas in which the client tends to feel more emotional about, which will then give us a better idea of some of those patterns and themes that bring up more intensity, so that we as the therapists and life coaches can better assist and be able to be more in tune with what the client is, experiencing, but also help the client to be more aware of what they're experiencing. So I think that is maybe also another way of bringing it in, is helping our clients understand the science-based approach to it, but also like the safety aspects, and also the aspects around, hey, because this is information, now we have more to work with, and it's not a waste of time for you to experience yourself here, because you're the one that feels this way, and maybe you're perceiving that other people might feel the same way. However, that may not necessarily be accurate, and you may benefit from experiencing it here.
Mm-hmm. And besides catharsis, Leah, what comes to my mind is the idea of Gestalt formation. I've been reading more about Gestalt theory recently, and the idea is that we may have certain feelings and attitudes that we're not safe to express at a certain time or circumstance, but they never go away. They live on in us in certain ways that might come out in distorted forms, in self-sabotaging behavior, in procrastination, in interpersonal problems, general unclarity in life. The space that we create with clients helps them to re-engage those kinds of feelings and attitudes, what is called Gestalt formation, the figure background formation. And then by engaging those feelings and attitudes, they can start to work on those kind of unresolved conflicts. So that process, from what I'm reading about, it cannot be done verbally. And I don't know if you guys have had any clients that sometimes say, maybe in past therapy encounters or life coaching, that, yeah, they've been talking about the problem, but it's like they understand themselves, but they can't really do anything about it. It's like they have the intellectual understanding of what's going on, but somehow it's stale. It's not enough to get them to improve themselves in meaningful ways and develop themselves. So I think that besides catharsis, which you mentioned, Leah, there's also just the Gestalt formation, we might call it, that happens when you allow yourself to re-engage those feelings and attitudes that you have suppressed or otherwise distorted in some way. When in the session you're able to bring them back out, I think it gives you clarity and renewed vitality in life, and the kind of improvements that people come to us for.
Yeah.
Josh, you want to chime in?
Yes. Yes. So this is brilliant. There's so much here. The emotional problem that I find with my clients is, to address your point, Ben, that like it's not only about feeling safe in the room, that okay, I can express this, but it's like the internal system feeling safe itself. Like there's a reason that they've probably shoved these emotions out of the system, because it's just going to overwhelm them, or it's just going to come in. And so like the client has to feel safe. I can experience this within this room for this hour and then leave not feeling it again, or something like, not like, I saw this client, and I had an interesting week this week, and clients getting mad at me, which is surprisingly I'm actually excited about. I'm like, yes, come on, get mad at me. Like have a little bit of that fire coming out in the session and direct it at me, because they don't have anyone in their life that they can direct this towards. But so anyways, and oh, there's so much. I'm sorry, guys. My mind is all over the place having to talk last.
Well, Joshua, I'm going to jump in right there, because the thought there is that the immediate thought for me is that they're feeling safe with you enough that they'll, you know, it sounds a little harsh and extreme, but I've thought about this for myself too, is like that they feel that they trust you enough and it's safe enough that they will, quote unquote, target you with that primal emotion of anger.
It was all through looks. It was all through looks. And what it was that, like, I'm like, so what I'm doing is I'm doing a Freed Sing. I'm trying to help them access these different emotional states. But then if I touch into one and there's a defense mechanism in them that's like, we don't go there. And I haven't been able to connect with their defenses and reassure them that it's safe to go there, then that anger just both times just flared right up, and they just shifted right out of that sadness, loneliness, whatever state that they were going into. Like one of my clients shared with me that it was she dissociates and she's sort of numb. So she has, like, the layers for her is there's an anger, there's a hurt, and then there's an anger over that, but she can never access her anger. And so then the next layer of that is numbing to get out of the anger. But then to get out of the numbing, she dissociates. And so, like, we've just sort of laid out the psychodynamic sort of connections between these. And, but she says even below that now is this sort of intense numbing and place of despair where she used to self-harm. And so she really doesn't want to go there. And so that's why for me it's like I have to feel like she has to feel safe that she can access this in this room and then not carry that over into home where she has kids and she has a family and a life, and that it can remain contained. And so this, like Dr. Solers, you taught me the emotional containment concept. And that's I think about that a lot when I'm in sessions, is to, like, try and help the clients just, like, hold these emotions, even if it's just for, like, these little bits, so they can get comfortable with, oh, I can do this. I can actually do this. Like, it's not going to overwhelm me, not going to open the floodgates, kind of thing.
Feelings don't have to dictate actions. In other words, if you feel in your office, she may feel safe. Maybe not. Maybe you're working on that, But in her family life, for example, she may not. And feelings, if she gets mad at somebody or she's hurt by somebody, she doesn't have to be compelled to talk about that, internally or externally through advice by someone else. I mean, you talk about it or you express it based on, does it help you? Does it help your relationship right now? Is it something to further advance what you need to do, something you're trying to convey, communicate? If not, maybe you want to wait, for example. So feelings are not facts, and feelings don't have to dictate what you do. People do feel that. They fear that. That means if I get mad at somebody, that means I have to go tell them off or something. And it doesn't mean that. I had this one client, he said, finally getting in touch with his anger after many years. And he said, well, what do you want me to do? Go fucking kill him? I said, no, man. No, that's not it at all. I said, just feel what you're feeling. You don't have to say anything if you don't want. It's just really important for you that you feel it and then process it. And you could talk to me about it, whatever. And then you can feel other feelings involved with the anger, and maybe communicate better at some point. But you don't have to be compelled to say anything to anybody. It's your feelings and it's your judgment about what serves you best. So anyway, that's a really important one. This idea that because you feel something doesn't mean in the future you're compelled to act on it, say something. And sometimes people get the idea that means they have to get in a fight with somebody too. You don't have to do that. You really don't have to do that. So anyway, I think that's a big one, right?
I think, Dr. Sollers, that so much of our participation in daily life, whether it's our interpersonal relationships at work, so much of it now is predicated on a certain degree of suppression of our feelings that I suspect, because suppressing our feelings is such a normal part of our daily functioning, maybe that's what gives us the impression that if we do open the floodgates, to use Josh's metaphor, that we won't be able to function. We won't be able to have our actions reflect our values as opposed to reflect these feelings. So I think that the current state of affairs now, where I don't know if anyone else gets this sense, but maybe it's always been this way, since what was that Freud book, Civilization and Its Discontents, about how a natural part of a civilization forming is we have to kind of resign and suppress and sublimate some of our feelings. Maybe we're doing that so much now that it's hard for us to distinguish between allowing us to feel and having there be behavioral consequences, because of course, as you say, Dr. Sollers, there's an obvious difference between them. You can allow yourself to feel a certain way towards someone and not have it reflect in your actions. I'm being reminded now of a certain client I had last year, where he was very reluctant to talk about his feelings towards a family member, because he was actually from similar culture to mine, where it's considered extremely disrespectful to speak ill of family members. So he found himself in a position in multiple sessions where he clearly had feelings of frustration, but he wasn't willing to access that part of himself, because not only did he think it would be disrespectful in that moment, but he also had this concern: if I access this part of myself, will it reflect in my actions? Will I not be able to honor and uphold them as I have to as part of an extended family unit? And what we ended up discovering is this paradox of, actually, if you don't access those feelings and attitudes, they end up coming out in certain ways, whether you want them to or not. And I don't know, Dr. Sollers, if there's like a fancy term for that, maybe return of the repressed, but like there tended to be with this certain client, this tendency for these unaccessed feelings to come up. And the paradox is, once you access them and express them and then control and hold them and just have a grasp on them, that's when your behaviors can start to reflect your values. So I suppose that also needs a term, this like strange paradox of like, it's actually once you've accessed these sometimes negative feelings and allowed them the space that they deserve, that your behaviors can reflect your values. It's not what we tend to think naively, that, oh, if I access them or if I express them, then my behaviors are at risk of becoming what I don't want them to be. So I
It's
think
the opposite. Unless you believe you have to express what you feel. You don't have to.
Mhm.
That's not a mandate, right? I mean, for instance, you could be mad at somebody and you may conclude, well, the best thing to do is let it be now. Or you might conclude, well, I just need to be able to say this is what I want, because that's what my frustration leads me to be mad at them. And you don't have to tell them off. You don't have to call them names. You don't have to say they're bad people. You just say what you want. So you may use that material from your information, has been referred to, from your feelings to effectively navigate your social environment, your relationships, right, more effectively. And Henry Crystal was one of my analysts. He would call this emotional continence, conscious emotional continence, which means what you're saying. If you can hold it in your conscious mind, contain it, and work it over, you have all kinds of information, and you can deftly craft what you want to do. If you don't, the tail wags the dog. You get so mad sometimes you pop off, or you say a snide comment, or things like that. They sneak out of you, right? They sneak out. Otherwise, sometimes you stonewall. You get cold. And people, they may not kind of get it all entirely, but they know when you're mad at them. And if you don't like engage it this way, and then find a way to communicate, they get it that you got something going on, and it bleeds out. You pop off, etc. But you're right. Maybe there's a good word for that, but it does happen that way, you know? So if you're conscious of your feelings, you have all kinds of different opportunities to express them or express elements of them effectively.
Maybe we could term that emotional constipation, because like, I don't know, I know that sounds really silly, but like it needs to have a name. So I don't know, someone needs to coin it, but for now I'm coining it as emotional constipation, and I think I'm going to reflect that to my clients.
Yeah. Let me add one thing too. I know we're getting near the end because we have to stop. So this idea of numbing, that is a fate of feelings when people feel like they can't express them, or there's pain, or there's hurt. You know, they feel like, well, then I'll deaden myself, you know, I'll deaden myself. And what happens then is it becomes a global response, and you become more of a deadened kind of personality, and you don't feel zestful, you don't feel impassioned with life. You lose a felt sense of meaning sometimes, because the aggression at least gets you involved in life, you know. If you feel it, I don't mean to act it out, but if you feel it, you're mad because you want something you can't get, or you're mad because you're hurt, or you're mad because you feel something that is missing. So it's a longing for life. But if you can't own that, you can't own the hurt or the shame or the pain, the deadening process is really kind of malignant. It really is not, it's not good, and people get depressed then, and they have to go through, with therapy or coaching, they have to go through different levels of trying to access these feelings that have been suppressed and even deadened, sometimes by holding the body tension, stuff like that. Trauma gets held because you don't want to feel the outrage about it. It isn't just the trauma, it's that the outrage or the pain or the hurt, you don't want to talk about, express it, because it feels like it's too much. And then the deadening process really can cause all kinds of problems. And there's a word for that, which is, aside from the deadening process, alexithymia is the word for you. People don't understand to have access or names for their feelings. So they over time, they really can't talk about their feelings at all very well. They just don't know. And like for Joshua, his client dissociated. Some people become obsessional. Some people project it and become paranoid. Some people turn it on themselves and become depressed. Some people hold it, suppress it, become anxious because they're afraid they're going to pop off. So there's a lot of different fates to that suppression of feelings, I think, which is kind of what we've been talking about. The different fates occur when you aren't able to access these feelings. This is why it's really one of the number one things we do in therapy and coaching that has a psychological value to it, is we try to help people accept their feelings, manage them, and find ways to negotiate and communicate them effectively. Again, not having to pop off, but using it as information to negotiate life constructively and effectively.
And
And-
I'll say,
Yep.
oh, I'm sorry, Ben.
Sorry for you. Go ahead. Yeah.
Thank you. Very briefly, I'll just say, I think that's what a lot of potential clients should be looking for, because there's this idea that coaching or therapy is just for people with specific symptoms, lack of sleep, anxiety, maybe chest pains. It doesn't have to be a symptom in the medical sense. It can be just this vague sense of, I'm going through the motions in life, I'm getting everything done, but gosh, there's this lack of full participation. I don't feel connected to what I'm doing. I feel like I'm just going through the motions. I feel like I'm just a bystander in my own life. That is not a trivial complaint. It's not a symptom in the medical sense, or maybe even the mental health sense, but it's a sign, I think, that there are certain parts of you that you have shut off and lost awareness of. And the benefit of therapy or coaching is it creates an environment where you can re-engage those cast off parts of yourself and get back in touch with them and utilize them for your creative adjustment to life. And that's where the color comes in. That's where the vitality comes in, feeling like you're absorbed with what you're doing. The ironic thing is, you probably won't change anything you're doing. Your relationships will remain the same, your job will remain the same, but you'll have this sense of fuller participation now because you've accessed these attitudes and feelings that, again, for whatever reason, you probably weren't allowed to bring out in a previous time. So you had to either turn against them or distort them or whatever the case may be. Coaching and therapy is an opportunity, is a space for you to bring those parts out, to become familiar with them, to integrate them into your personality, and then use them to, again, creatively endeavor to go through life in this kind of more participating way. That is so much of what people are experiencing these days. And I think that is essentially what coaching or therapy services can help you with.
Very good. Ben, you only have the last word. I think you've been trying to say a few things. Thanks.
It doesn't have to be the last word, but
Well, I mean,
in the middle of all this, I was just thinking how, I was thinking how it's just been a revelation for me to separate or distinguish between thoughts, feelings, and actions. You know, and it's something that you talk about, Dr. Sellers. You were just talking about it, and I mean, it's like sometimes I think of my life as a long series of realizing the obvious, and it sounds in a way so obvious. Like thoughts are different from feelings, are different from actions. But you know, I remember the time when, and I still come back around to that. But it's just being able to start to pull those apart is just so rich. And part of that too goes back to the kind of the original question is like, wait a minute, if what I feel doesn't have to exactly coincide with what I'm going to do right now, then I can actually explore it, you know? So it's sort of a relief, like, whoa, wait, we can take these in different parts.
Very good.
But back to you guys. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we do have to stop, but thanks everybody. I mean, it was rich, as you say, and you know, we could go on because what Fareed's talking about with the numbness and the lack of participation. It's really the lack of meaning people develop when they numb so much because they don't have this felt sense of connection, which the existentialists talk about a lot. You know, that you know, Heidegger went through it. A number of people went through it, where they feel this deadness, and they don't feel that even if you lived 1,000 years, it wouldn't matter because it doesn't feel like it matters. There's nothing matters, right? That's a real painful state of being. So I think we were touching on that today. In fact, we was touching on that. So okay, so thanks everybody. Thank you very much for all your contributions. We'll talk again next week. Have a great day. So thank you very much for being part of our Transformation and Transcendence Roundtable podcast. We'll be having this podcast every Thursday at 12 noon, but then it will be uploaded where you could be able to find it on any podcast platform that you have, Apple, Spotify, etc. And it should be will be on YouTube as well. So thanks for joining us, and we hope it's been helpful in your spiritual and emotional growth, and that you've gleaned a little bit of blessing and insight and inspiration for your growth as you go forward. May it blossom throughout your day. Okay, thanks again. See you next time.